Hello and welcome to the Content Bite. We've been off for a couple of weeks, so if you're listening in for the first time, we are a podcast for anyone who uses their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a journalist, copywriter and content producer and the founder of Rachel's List. And I'm joined again today by my co-pilot, Lynn Testoni. Hi, Lynn. Nice to see you again after a couple of weeks off.
Yeah, hi, Rach. How are you?
I'm good.
It is nice to say hello to all our listeners, and it's great to be back after a little break. Like Rachel, I'm a journalist and a content producer, and today's episode is all about JobKeeper.
Yes.
We're so excited to have a great guest on today.
Yes, it's Holly Shoebridge, who some of you might know from the freelance jungle, or she might be your accountant, or you may have heard of her via other things that she does. I think she does quite a few different things, not just crunching numbers for people. Is that right, Lynn?
That is. She works with a lot of freelancers. I'll tell you a little about Holly before she joins us. She's the Director of Oceans Accounting and Advisory. She's a certified public practitioner of CPA Australia. She's an ASIC agent, a BAS agent. She's a tax agent in training. She's a Xero partner and a QuickBooks advisor. She's had over 15 years experience providing accounting, bookkeeping and tax services to large corporate and not-for-profit clients, both domestically and internationally, within the music industry, and more recently advising small and medium enterprises across a wide variety of industries, including creative and media, recruitment, medical. Oh my goodness, so much, Holly, so much.
Goodness, Holly, you know more about numbers than anyone I know. And it's actually my worst nightmare being an accountant. So I'm so glad that there are people like you out there.
So welcome, Holly. Welcome. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to have the opportunity to chat.
It's great. Well, I know you because, of course, you're my accountant. So I think you're fabulous. And I first heard about you from the Freelance Jungle Facebook group, and I know you have a lot of freelancers as clients. What do you love about working with freelancers and small business?
Gosh, I love that no two people, no two businesses are ever the same. So every day it brings something completely different. And I think it's a privilege to be able to have that connection and insight into someone's business, to help them sort of grow, maintain, or commence their business. It's a privilege.
Also, one of the things I missed out from your bio is that you used to have a photography and photographic art business as well. So you are a creative yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. I never forget having that photographic business and trying to do my first tax return. And I was studying accounting at the time. I only just started, and I was so overwhelmed and frustrated. And it was at that point I was like, why don't I combine accounting and creativity? So, to be able to help creatives it's amazing.
So you obviously had like a numbers brain. You've always had a sort of knack for numbers, and it doesn't scare you like it scares a lot of us who are writers.
Oh yeah, I love numbers. I'm strangely, always, I remember number plates and I'm calculating things in the shopping centre. So there's something in there.
Yeah, wow. Okay. And so tell us, you've also done a bit of lifeline counselling, is that right?
Yeah, I only just started that. I studied earlier in the year and I got on the phones in April. So during this period, it's been quite, enlightening just to see how people are affected by this pandemic and just life in general. To have that connection with other humans and in their vulnerability is really beautiful.
It must be really interesting starting something like Lifeline in the midst of a pandemic. Like, you really don't have a lot to compare it to. So I imagine there's a lot of sort of mental health issues that are really specific to the pandemic and what's going on, and people losing their jobs or losing work and freaking out about paying their bills, or even the isolation of being trapped in their homes. And, I suppose the Lifeline, does it just draw in listeners from Sydney or local, or is it everyone in Australia?
Everyone in Australia. So there's various call centres around Australia. I obviously sit at one on the Northern Beaches, and calls come in depending if you're available. So yeah, we've spoken to a lot of people for a range of issues: isolation, can't pay their bills, all kinds of issues. It's incredibly eye-opening. It's such a privilege to help.
Wow. It must be really interesting as well, having that accounting background. Like, I guess that they really love that because you can sort of bring that in to people who perhaps need a bit of financial help or a financial advisor type person, even, you know, to help them through those times?
Yeah, definitely. There are a couple of calls that stand out that needed a bit of financial guidance or accessing supplements, and I was able to sort of tap into my accounting world, and it really helped those people, which was nice. Two worlds combined.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your work with freelancers and the issues you're seeing, you know, coming up in the pandemic over and over.
Gosh, it's quite diverse. So I think the crux of it, a lot of the issues that we're helping businesses with are sort of around cash flow plans, cash flow forecasts. Obviously, a lot of people have had a significant hit to their income, which is reduced for various reasons. So reducing their cash outlays, so they've got a bit more expendable cash to pay the mortgage or the rent or whatever. Just sort of, we've had people that have struggled to keep a roof over their head and have been incredibly panicked. So we've just sort of helped navigate as best we can, access income support and manage those budgets for them.
Are many of your clients on JobKeeper? Because Rachel and I don't know a lot about JobKeeper, except probably what we've read, you know, randomly. So is that a big thing? And consider that I know nothing. So what should you know about JobKeeper right from the beginning?
Okay, so the first question, are a lot of the clients on JobKeeper? I think a lot of people and businesses are taking up JobKeeper just because the impact of this pandemic has been so widespread. We also have a lot of clients that, unfortunately, through the nature of their business, they can't access JobKeeper, that's been hard sort of navigating how to help them traverse out of that. So it's a bit of a mixed bag there. And in terms of what to know about JobKeeper,
So much, I know. Big question, sorry.
I would say what to know before even getting to a point of applying and eligibility and all that kind of thing. Have your records up to date, have your BAS and tax lodgements up to date, and ask for the name of a good accountant, or reach out to your accountant if you're already in touch with one, and let them deal with it for you, because the amount of audit and risk of error for, you know, people when they're applying, it's just not worth the risk of the ATO coming back to you. So have good sound records and a good professional to lean into. That's what you should know.
Oh, that's a good thing. Because one of the things because there's also Job Seeker, and a lot of people, I think, originally got them confused. But Job Seeker is through Centrelink, which is a whole other sort of unemployment sort of thing. But JobKeeper is through the ATO, the tax office, isn't it? So there's a separate.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Job Seeker was, I think it was previously called the New Start Allowance. Around the time of the pandemic, they changed the name of it and they gave it a coronavirus supplement. So that's Job Seeker, run through Centrelink, and you'll jump through a various number of hoops to get through that.
Yeah.
And JobKeeper is through the ATO, and that's a lot of the business clients are accessing that because they had a successful business at one time, and through coronavirus, that's all changed. So they're really leaning into that JobKeeper.
I think to be eligible, you have to have a significant downturn in your income, isn't it? That's the way it goes.
I thought it was 30%, wasn't it? Is that still that?
Yeah, that's it, 30% or more decline in gross GST turnover. So you don't, just to clarify that, GST turnover is the term used in the legislation. You don't have to be GST registered. I've seen that question come up quite a few times.
Yeah.
So that means you just have to look at your income from the last financial year and match it to where you're at this financial year and go that I'm 30% down, and that's how you know you're eligible?
Yeah. So previously, the way you would determine eligibility, it's changed. So obviously the new JobKeeper 2.0 coming in from 28 September, you'll be comparing September quarter 2020 compared to September quarter 2019. You want to show that you've had a 30% or more decline in gross turnover. For some businesses, 2019 September is not going to be a fair comparison. They might have just started in business and their turnover was quite low at the time. So there will be what's called alternative tests. So you can lean into an alternative comparison period. So you'd have September 2020 compared to an alternative period. But yeah, those rules will be released. Don't worry about those details. I won't bog us down now. But generally, if you can prove a 30% decline in turnover, then you're potentially eligible to receive the JobKeeper.
Okay, I'll just backpedal a bit from what you were saying before about go to an accountant and do this through an accountant. So essentially anyone, if you're one of those people out there who hasn't done your tax in like 3 years, you're not going to get JobKeeper, are you, until you've gone and done your tax?
On the ATO website, there's a whole range of rules and criteria that an eligible business participant, which will be a sole trader or freelancer, will have to get through or tick off. And those will be having your lodgements up to date. And we have helped a lot of clients wrap up 3, 4 years, 5 years of BAS and tax returns to get them across the line. Yeah.
Well, it's a good reason to get your stuff up. It's a good incentive to get up to date.
Yeah,
I like to get my tax done straight away, so it's just out of the way. But I know that there are a lot of people out there who don't do their tax for years on end. I always think, what will happen if that's you? You know, are you going to be up to like a 20 grand bill or something like that? You know,
Such a stressful way to
very
live.
stressful, very stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, we do recommend dealing with it as soon as you can, but obviously life gets in the way, and some people, they might leave it. It's actually very common. We see it. People have left it for many, many years, and that's okay. Well, we're here.
I think on the Gold Group, we've had like a lot of people Lynn, have you noticed a lot of people commenting on JobKeeper or saying, I missed out because I didn't report in time, or, you know, a lot of people complain that they have missed out on a run of JobKeeper. I mean, can you explain what that means? Do you have to report by a certain date, and what information do you have to get in order to stay on the JobKeeper program? Is that even accurate?
Yeah. So once you enroll for JobKeeper, then and you've determined your eligibility, you enroll, and then you're eligible to potentially receive money from the ATO. They pay that each month. Each month, you need to report a declaration to the ATO, and that will show them how much your actual income for the month that just went was, and you'll also provide a forecast for the month ahead. And that's due, I think it's on the 14th of each month. So if you don't lodge that, I think there's some leniency. We don't have too many people lodging late, but there's some leniency. You can lodge a little bit late. We've had clients call up the ATO and said, I've had things get in the way. But I think once it gets past a certain point, it's not possible to backdate. I think there was, we had one client in particular that may have missed out on that for that reason.
Just for that month payment.
Yes. So from what I understand, you miss out on that if it's lodged too late. I haven't had a case where we've been able to backdate, or I've had to look into having the ATO backdate. So, but from the next month, if you lodge your monthly declaration on time and you are already enrolled, then once you make that declaration, it triggers a message to the ATO, I'm ready to receive my JobKeeper payment.
And that declaration is literally the work that you've done in the previous month.
Yeah, so it's basically you're saying to the ATO on September 14th, you'll tell them, in August I earned $10,000, and for September month I forecast I'm going to earn $5,000, and you are confirming that you are in fact eligible to continue receiving JobKeeper. You hit submit, and that's done.
So it's a little bit different to JobSeeker in the sense that if you have a partner, your partner who might be earning has to provide their earnings as well for you to continue on JobSeeker, but that's not the case with JobKeeper. Your partner's earnings aren't taken into account?
Yeah, that's correct. So job seekers they typically look at like family income to determine, what level of job seeker you'll receive. From March or April, I believe they increased that level of family income just to help more people through this pandemic. JobKeeper is primarily targeted at business clients. So they're only looking at the business income. So if you and your husband work in a business together, they're looking at the business income, but so they're not going to look at your spouse's income if you're an individual sole trader, freelancer.
Right. Okay.
Now, we were talking beforehand, Holly, one of the challenges when you are a freelancer is that a lot of government regulations like this don't think about us. They think about a more conventional sort of small business, maybe a shop or some sort of, that employs a few people. But is it trickier if you're a sole trader? It gets a bit confusing, some of the paperwork and everything. Do you find that?
I think initially, like when we were chatting before, when this first JobKeeper rolled out, there wasn't a lot of consideration given to freelancers and sole traders at all. And there was quite a bit of pushback. And the legislation really encompasses specific areas to account for eligible business participants and sole traders. And there are a lot of rules and regulations. They're constantly being updated every day. So it is quite tricky whether you are a shop front, family company, a sole trader freelancer, there's a lot of information to get through. So it is quite tricky to navigate, and it's kind of good to have someone there that's dealing with it every single day that might think of things that you might not be across because you're focusing on, your content
on your
creation.
business. Yeah.
Exactly. What you do in the business. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so there's a new round though of JobKeeper. Talk us through that and what that might mean for freelancers.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot of information, so I'll just break it down into sort of bite-sized, palatable chunks so you don't fall asleep.
Love it. But we love a bite-sized, palatable chunk here.
Yes.
Chocolate flavoured preferably. Sorry.
So this particular JobKeeper 1 will run till 27th of September, and then JobKeeper 2 will commence 28th of September. That's broken into 2 parts. So JobKeeper is going to cease altogether 28th of March. From 28th of September to, I think it's 3rd January, this is part 1 of JobKeeper 2. So they'll be looking at your September quarter 2020 gross turnover compared to September 2019 quarter gross turnover. If you get across the line and you're eligible to receive the payments, the payment amounts will be different. So currently $1,500 before tax is paid if you're receiving JobKeeper.
Yeah.
In this next September to January round, the top rate will be $1,200 per fortnight before tax. That's tier 1. And then there's tier 2, which will be $750 per fortnight before tax. And then from January to March, tier 1 is $1,000 per fortnight. And then tier 2 is $650 per fortnight. So to determine whether you get the top rate or the lower rate, they'll also be looking at how many hours you're working in your business this time. So they didn't do that last time. So if you worked, I think they're looking at February as the indicative month here. So if in February you worked 80 hours or more, you'll be eligible for the top tier potentially. And if you worked 80 hours or less in that calendar month, then you'll get the $750 per fortnight being tier 2. And they are requiring quite substantial record keeping to show how, they might look at your diary, logbooks, hours billed, invoices issued to determine how you came to working 80 hours or more or 80 hours or less.
Oh my goodness, that's why you need to have all your records up to date, because not everybody would keep those sort of records, would they?
I don't think,
especially the February records, like before we knew we had to keep these records.
Exactly, yeah. I think if you've got a business diary, you've got an accounting system that's got invoices, a lot of it will we naturally create an audit trail without realizing.
Yeah.
But now I think having this requirement to provide these records, if I could give any piece of advice, is to start writing down or keeping a list of when you are working. Like you might not raise an invoice for 3 days as an example, but you've been working in the business doing marketing, and so just keep a close eye on that kind of thing.
Oh wow. Okay.
So that's quite a substantial drop, isn't it? And having the tiers and the different levels of payments, and the payments are much lower really when you look at it. I mean, what do you think is going to happen once that starts to be phased in and people are, getting that much less, even if they can't build up their work again?
Look, I've thought about this. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are really significantly impacted, because at the moment there are a lot of people relying on that to pay their bills, to do the shopping, to pay the rent. So when that, to reduce it by $300 a fortnight, say you're getting the top tier, that's a lot. So I think people are going to be really quite frugal. Hopefully they'll be reaching out and able to gain some kind of employment, or I think people are going to do it tough. I think the economy is going to feel a real hit.
Yeah.
One thing about this, is this a national thing? Because obviously, like Rachel and I are based in New South Wales, as are you, and obviously our economy is in a bit better shape at the moment than, say, Victoria. What about, are there different things, or are they more state-based things? So if people in Victoria might be suffering more economically than those in New South Wales.
Yeah, so this is Australia-wide. It's administered by the ATO. So we've got clients all over Australia. So if you're eligible, it's not based on location. Statewide, in terms of support, there are various grants available through the various state governments, and councils and differing bodies depending where you are. But this particular income support is Australia-wide.
Okay, so that does make a big difference, I think, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be there must be some additional support around Victoria for grants and things that will become available.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that's really important to mention about JobKeeper that we haven't asked you?
Good questions to ask your accountant.
Yes. Yes. Good questions to ask your accountant. That's a great one.
I guess, like I mentioned before, if you've got good records and you can substantiate your income, if you genuinely feel like you're being impacted by JobKeeper, have a chat to your accountant. There's so much information to know, and I think we've kind of covered off the main things, like the reduced rates, tracking your hours, eligibility showing a 30% decline in turnover. If you've got your lodgements up to date and good records, whether that's in Excel or on accounting platforms like Rounded or Xero or whatever it is, you're in a good position from that point. So I think the best thing to know is have your records up to date.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of our listeners are writers, and I have to say that a lot of writers have this real aversion to numbers, which probably dates back to school. So, I guess that's
Space maths. I did pass. I got 75%. But it was space maths, for the HSC. I remember that fondly. Anyway, sorry.
Yes. But so I guess that's one of those things. And I think that's a good thing to talk about with accountants anyway, is that I'm sure as an accountant, you see this a lot, that sometimes writers or word people feel really stupid when it comes to maths. But that's what people like you were there for. Every accountant has seen that you can cope with that, can't you?
Oh, yeah. The number of times we get told, like, we'll take on creative clients and they're obviously, brilliant at writing or being a photographer. They say, I don't think I've done this right, or I'm not good with numbers. And the work that they present to us is often, it's brilliant. As long as you've got records there and if there is anything you don't understand, that's exactly why we're here. We're here to explain, like, you're not supposed to be good at tax and accounting as well as being, a masterful creative. That's, if I need content or, someone to write something for me, I'm certainly not going to have the skills that, for example, that you might have. So I'd come to someone like you. So yeah, there's never a stupid question. You're not expected to know anything. We've seen some, 10 years of records not recorded and being able to help clients. There's never an issue. Don't let that be a barrier.
Yeah, I do think people get a bit crippled by the fear sometimes.
I love there is no stupid question. I'm pretty sure my accountant thinks some of my questions are stupid, but I ask them anyway, repeatedly, every year.
No stupid questions that ask. I think curiosity is a great thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, we also wanted to just touch on something with you because a lot of our listeners are kind of moving out of print and possibly starting their own businesses or having to freelance for the first time because they've been made redundant from an in-house role. So, what would be your advice to, freelancers who are starting out in trying to set up their own business? What would be your best financial advice to those people to get it off on the right note?
Gosh, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but have good record keeping practices in place. So
but does that mean using like Rounded or Wave or like from the start actually investing in a proper accounting package?
100%. Yeah. So we've like Excel works a treat, Microsoft Excel. We've got free templates on the website. On our website, you can download to record your income and expense. If you don't mind spending a few bucks a month, depending on what level of expenditure you want to incur. Rounded is amazing, intuitive platform, brilliant for recording income expense, monitoring your bank connections. There's Xero. Having good records, like what's it saying? What gets measured gets managed. It helps you manage your cash flow. You can create invoices and monitor them, debt collection, which feeds into your cash flow. You're tracking your expenditure, your profitability. Having that visibility of what's coming in and going out is really empowering, and it helps you make more educated decisions. So obviously as well, if you've got a little pot of cash there to sort of support you in that initial phase, And one good practice to implement is, if you say, for example, you create an invoice for $1,000 to John pays you $1,000, set, whatever percentage aside for your GST, your income tax, reserves. So you might set aside 15%, you might set aside 30%. It really depends on the individual or the business. But record keeping and setting aside a little bit of money for taxes, and you're ahead. You're starting on the front foot.
Wow.
So it's not that hard, really. It's just, but it is easier if you start at like setting up good processes. And is that a good time to help? An accountant can help you set up the right sort of things too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. For example, we have a best practice session. So we can talk to someone in an hour and provide them with resources that's going to set them up. If you've got good record keeping and you need to lodge a BAS, it's all there for you. You can literally pull it together and click a button and your BAS is lodged. It's very, it's easy. It really makes a big difference doing that right from the start. And yes, an accountant can really help very, very quickly in that sense.
Yeah, I put aside 30% of every invoice, I think 30 or 40%, I can't remember, but I thought that was fairly standard, like 30% of every invoice, or not?
Yeah, 30% tends to be a number that a lot of accountants will say, just to have it's quite a conservative number. Typically tax, I mean, it really depends on the individual or the business, but
how much tax you're paying.
Exactly. Like if you're earning 20K, you're going to be required to set aside a whole lot less than if you're someone that's earning taxable income of 120K. So, but 30% is a fantastic, anywhere sort of between 20 to 30. If you're setting aside 40%, I would expect you to be at year end absolutely laughing with reserves left to spend on assets or reinvest in the business or take a holiday, hopefully.
Yeah.
Oh, the dream.
So is there like a rule of thumb on what you would set aside if you were, say, earning 50K, 75K, 100K? Does it change with that percentage that you should set aside?
Yeah, it will change. Like I guess you look at your marginal tax rates. So if you Google that, if you're interested, you go to the ATO website, look at the marginal tax rate, and you'll look at the tax rate applied to your particular income bracket, and you'll set that amount aside. Maybe you'll put a few extra percent on top to account for super. If you're GST registered, you're going to want to set aside GST. So I'm reluctant to say for 50K, set aside 20%, 75K, set aside 30%, because it really is unique to the individual and what they're.
I do know that when I started, the ATO has a tax calculator. So you can go in and put in your expected income and it tells you how much tax. So I think whatever I put in, it told me that I'd be paying $37,000 a year. And so by the end of that year, I then divided it in between 12 and then worked out how much money I'd have to put aside per month for tax.
Yeah, that's a good point you raised. There are some brilliant online calculators with the ATO. I manually calculate them, so I don't.
You don't use I use the web ones.
That's brilliant. And also, I think in addition to those calculators, if you can set aside a little bit more for superannuation or your GST, then you're laughing. And I think I was speaking to Ollie from Rounded. From what I understand, there's actually an indicative tax payable figure. So if you're using Rounded and you're inputting your income and expense, there's a section that shows you how much potentially your tax bill may be, which can be quite helpful for anyone using Rounded.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, a lot of Rachel's List people use Rounded because Rachel has a bit of a discount on it. And you use it, don't you?
Yeah, Ollie, I use it for Rachel's List and for my freelancing business. So I've got 2 Rounded accounts. But yeah, Ollie gives a special discount to Rachel's List members. So yeah, a lot of them have jumped on. Yeah. Would you have any advice, like, we're kind of getting to the end now, but just any advice for people who are feeling very stressed at the moment, worried about money and feeling they're going into a recession, and, what would be your advice to people who, want to get through this time?
Look, I think from a mental health perspective, self-care, set aside time for yourself each day to go for a walk in nature, manage your daily stresses. From a financial perspective, I think planning. I mean, at the moment, to plan in this economic climate is challenging. It's almost like looking into a crystal ball. But I think we've got a good indication that things are going to become challenging. particularly with the reduced JobKeeper. So if you can plan, have a budget in place, look at what your expenditure is. You know, if you're spending $1,000 a month and $200 of that you don't need, look to get rid of some subscriptions. Can you start looking for jobs and work? Like, I know that's quite difficult, but you know, if you can look at old marketing leads and try and reach out to someone for work, I think just planning, having a plan. What's that saying? If you fail to plan, you
plan to fail.
I mean, you're not failing in this climate, but just having some loose idea of how you'll get through the next few months, having some figures in an Excel worksheet or.
Yeah.
That does make sense.
It does. That's great.
Oh, wow. Holly, thank you so much. We've learned so much.
I know. Really, I feel bamboozled by, but in a good way.
Yeah, it's actually quite exciting because I think you've taken some of the intimidating elements out of it. So I think it's good, and I think the idea we should stress that in this climate, things are changing all the time. In the show notes, we'll put the link to some of the relevant government websites, because while we're recording this in sort of mid-September, even by like November or December, things could change. At the moment, it doesn't look like it, but who knows? So double check. And as Holly said right at the beginning, getting good advice from an accountant is a good idea, just in case your individual circumstances are different from the general, and that helps, because that's what they're there for.
Absolutely. Thank you, Holly. We are just so happy to have finally got you on the podcast and for you to share all your wisdom with us. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Great to chat.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to the end of the show. So thanks everyone for listening and sharing on social media. We picked up quite a few listeners in the last few weeks, even though we've been quiet. So it's lovely to be back. And don't forget to leave a rating or review on iTunes, Stitcher or Spotify. We love that.
Yes, it helps others find us. And also don't forget to head over to rachelslist.com.au blog and click on the content by picture at the top, and you can pick up the show notes for this episode.
And we'll put in links to maybe Holly's Excel sheets and things like that, which would be great.
Yes, and you can see where to find Holly, and how to contact her if you need a really good accountant as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks everybody. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.